Hello and welcome to ANC Decides, the show that gives you up-to-the-minute reports, commentary and analysis building up to the December elective conference. I'm your host, Mfundo Mabalani. Now on to today's main topic. ANC Treasurer General Mkhize has given the clearest indication yet that he's in the running for the presidency, but there are different views about his prospects in the hotly contested race.
Ground mobilization where we go out to communities and invite them to the event, and this is going very well.
The party is going through a lot of issues that it has to face.
South Africa,
Mkhize is keeping cards close to his chest on the ANC succession race. His campaign is in keeping with age-old ANC tradition of waiting for the nominations window to open before launching a bid.
So we have been moving around talking about uniting the people of South Africa, uniting the African National Congress, because we believe that this unity, it must be unity around those values that President O.R. Tambo represented.
ANC Treasurer General, who is dubbed the dark horse in the race, indicates what his campaign entails without giving away too much. Mkhize touches on all pressing national issues without propping himself up.
Those who get elected, who will be elected in the next conference, must be leaders who are described in one of our rigorous documents, in our document that outlines the rigorous characteristics of what it means to be a leader.
Regarding contentious issues like state capture, Mkhize plays it by the book, opting to sing from the same hymn sheet as the ANC. This makes him difficult to read or pin to a particular faction within the ANC.
An issue that has arisen quite frequently now in our vocabulary, I hear also that is recorded as some term that South Africans are using very frequently, state capture. We do anticipate as well that that review that's in court will be concluded soon enough, because we believe that a commission of inquiry needs to be set that must investigate all.
Mkhize is seen as a compromise candidate between two dominant ANC factions. While it may work for him to be in the middle, delegates will ultimately want to know what he stands for as a presidential candidate. A Bureau Report, ANN7.
Now today in studio, we're joined by political analyst Protas Madlala as well as Jackie Shandu. Welcome to the both of you. Jackie, perhaps to start with you.
Sure.
He's dubbed the ultimate dark horse, and in some circles he's considered the compromise or unity candidate. What do you make of Treasurer General Mkhize's campaign thus far?
Well, it's a very silent campaign. Good evening to you. Good evening to your viewers. It's not saying anything. Not saying anything outside what we've heard in terms of what his personal vision is for this economy and for this country. And that's very disappointing, to put it mildly. Especially given where we are as a country in terms of socio-economic relations, you know, which were mainly dictated by the history of this country, right? So we need someone today who is going to not be shy to say, look, we have failed to transform society. We have failed to transform the economy. We have failed to alter power relations, land ownership patterns in this country, right? From 1994, when we were first given the mandate to govern South Africa as the African National Congress, up to 2017, we have not done much to reverse the institutionalized systemic injustices, right, that were, implemented by the colonialist regime as well as the apartheid regime that comes into office in 1948. And it doesn't inspire confidence that Zweli Mkhize, just like Cyril Ramaphosa, is very shy, very apologetic to come out and say, look, the fundamental antagonism in this constitutional democracy is this inequality that we were supposed to begin to deal with in 1994, but has actually gotten worse. It has gone unabated, it has exacerbated, and now we need unprecedented state measures, interventions, through legislation, right, to nip it in the bud. He's not saying any of the such, and it's disappointing.
An interesting view, but perhaps let's rope in political analyst Protas Madlala. Protas, a warm welcome to you. Your take on the Treasurer General's campaign thus far?
Well, as the colleague has just mentioned there to you, I think they have been really not. There's not been very much of a robust debate addressing really serious issues, issues of inequality and how they came about historically, and also how to redress them. So I really concur with the observation. There's nothing really heated. One is not experiencing a debate like one normally witnesses in countries like UK and America, which obviously those are first world countries. But really, there's nothing very much impressive right now.
But beyond this, in a number of addresses, he's gone on to talk about radical economic transformation as well as the need for inclusive growth. I mean, many are arguing that these are not mutually exclusive. We need to transform the economy, but we also need to grow the economy. So is he not somebody that has touched on most of that?
Well, the candidates, all of them are fine, even the Treasurer General. But, what I don't get really turned on by this issue of economic transformation, because no one unpacks it. And unless, for me, what would really excite me, if one unpacks it from a view of the bottom end, the poor people going upward. No one really, for me, it's just become a cliche. I think you as media people, I think we should really put them in the corners and say, please unpack it for us. What does it mean for a poor person in a rural area, or a person who is unemployed in a township, or the young people who will be leaving their matrics at the end of this year? What does radical economic transformation mean for those people?
No, I hear you. We'll continue this conversation. We now cross over to our reporter, Nomusa Phumulo, who's out in KZN. Nomusa, warm welcome to you. Now, you're in Jozini today, but yesterday, Treasurer General Zweli Mkhize addressed a dinner in Pietermaritzburg, which was predominantly organized by various sectors, be it business, religious sector. What were some of the key take-homes in that address?
Well, good evening, Nomfundo, and good evening to our viewers. One of the main things the Treasurer General spoke about at the dinner last night was the current state of the economy and how he can go about, if he's given the opportunity, to lead the African National Congress to make sure that there is inclusive growth as well as there is development, particularly for women and young people, which he has described as the ones that have been most vulnerable in terms of participating in the economy. He made examples of programs like the Black Industrialist. He made examples of programs like making sure that young people are the ones that are producing the goods here in South Africa, so that they are able to supply those goods to those that need them in order for them to make money, participate in the economy, subsequently currently make sure that they create employment for other young people. He also said that it is important to take note that currently the African National Congress, for example, as there are many candidates building up to the elective conference, as he is campaigning solo, he does not say that he is going to lead the African National Congress alone. But what he is saying is that there are many African National Congress leaders that are capable, which get overlooked because of the different slates that come up whenever there is an elective conference. He believes that many people or the branch delegates are the one who should be electing who should be leading with who, because people end up being loyal to slates rather than the organization itself. So therefore, it is important so that your loyalty to the organization is not questionable, to remain loyal to the organization and not end up being called a person of another person, rather a person of the organization, because at the end of the day, that will assist bring unity within the organization. He also mentioned that going to the elective conference, there are many policies that they are going to be discussed, but the one that he is particularly looking at and making sure that his campaign is based on is the one of radical economic transformation. He made an example of one of the guests that were at the dinner, a very young man who started from nothing. Today he's manufacturing many window frames and door frames, and he is creating jobs for other young people in Pietermaritzburg. Regardless of that, though, Mfundo, most of the business people that partake in the dinner, or the ones that invited him to come and engage him on the state of economy, as well as the role of businesses in society, and how he plans to make sure that women and young people are developed in South Africa, they mentioned that it is important to note that at the end of the day, business and government need to work together to make sure that this goal of radical economic transformation is achieved, because you would know that there is no way that young people particularly can be part of businesses without capital. So therefore, how are they going to get that capital? Will now the state say that we have enough money to give to the young people so that they have capital to start their own businesses? No, but rather businesses need to work with government and make sure that they raise that capital, to make sure that there are incentives, for example, like the black industrialists, to give to young people who are going to manufacture stuff from South Africa, and rather than having to buy stuff that has been manufactured from other countries. He made example of different projects that have been done in South Africa. However, he still emphasized that there's still more that needs to be done. The African National Congress needs leaders that are going to take the principle from our Tambo as we are celebrating his 100th anniversary. He also said that unity is one thing that our Tambo gave them to take forward.
No, certainly. Thank you very much, Musa. Will speak as days progress. Jackie, if ever you thought he wasn't touching on radical economic transformation, there he is. Business Gala dinner, he's invited, he's speaking about putting women at the forefront this time around. So what is missing now?
Well, I mean, it's all good in words, but even the wording is problematic. He speaks about, based on what your reporter has said now, black industrialists. You know, he speaks about black business, young youth entrepreneurship. Look, all studies, all research has shown, right, in the past a little over 2 decades of this democracy, that big business, multinational corporations have squeezed out any significant role that can be played by small and micro-medium enterprises in this country.
But they've actually been creating the most jobs. I mean, SMMEs at this point
they do.
Are the ones that are creating more jobs, contrary to what many would think, that we've got big businesses creating jobs right now.
You go to Latin America, you go even to the global north, including the UK and North America. That's the trend.
But then,
But
what does he lack? If he's talking RET, he's also talking inclusive growth. It seems that the business sector is also welcoming to some extent to him.
But he's not speaking about monopoly industries, that in banking you have an oligarchy of 5 players that just dominate commercial banking. It's the same trend in law. It's the same trend in construction, big 5, big 4, in every way, manufacturing, in food retailer, right? I could name names, big 4, big 5, that's it. They control 95% of market share. And without state intervention, through very robust legal and acts of parliament, nothing can happen.
No, but he could easily say in his defense, say that I do not have to phrase it as you do, but I am aware of the oligopolistic nature of the business arena right now, because they don't have to go about addressing each and everything, but it's not to say that he doesn't see.
Look, awareness, I mean, it's an interesting way to put it, because all those who have sold us out as a continent, not just as a country, have always been aware of what is the right thing to do. But because of these unethical relations, particularly between them and those who own means of production, and this is robustly the private sector in South Africa, which has enormous unaccounted for power to influence political decisions. So you can know what needs to be done, what's the right path to follow. But that does not necessarily mean that that's the path that's going to be followed. 1994, the post-apartheid economic policy trajectory of South Africa is a case in point. The ANC always knew what needed to be done to bridge the gap, to redress historical injustices. But that's not the path. Instead, you have people running to the IMF, to the World Bank, to Wall Street for privatization, for foreign direct investment.
This element of him being the technocrat, do you not believe at this point that's what we need?
No.
If ever we've had politicians that were people's persons, we now need the one that will run South Africa like a business.
Flatly no. Historically, Africa has always been sold out by technocrats, many of whom were even trained in North America and Western Europe. So this idea, it's an old colonial idea, that if you have a PhD, if you have an engineering or an MA, whatever it is, from America or the UK, therefore you must come back. But, you know, it's a myth, and it's not. Our reality in the past 20 years has shown that today where we are, we need someone that's going to come to terms with the reality of the inequality, with the reality of the massive poverty, particularly in the black community, and to say it can't be business as usual. And we've listened to Cyril Ramaphosa, we've listened to Lindiwe Sisulu, we've listened to Mkhize, and none of these candidates are saying we have a problem in South Africa. The economy is dominated by very powerful and aggressive monopoly industries, and all those monopoly industries are owned and controlled by white monopoly capitalists. We need someone to be honest enough who can come into our confidence as citizens and say, this is the problem we are faced with. We can't stand up.
But most of them have talked about inequality. They've talked about us having the most unequal society in South Africa. So what more would need to be said? Because my biggest concern now is when we're talking transformation, what is our responsibility as the electorate? That we're going to be talking about a transformed economy, but when will it meet a transformed mindset? Because we want to be players in the business sector. We want them to open it up. We want to sell, perhaps for the young people, they want to have their brands of clothing sold at certain retail stores. But us, are we the ones that are prepared to buy from black people? Are we the ones that will support the black business? Because at the end of the day, we can have black products in the markets, but then who's doing the groundwork to transform the mindset of a black man?
But we need the social, political, and economic framework that must be provided for those kinds of things to be possible, right? For black people to get to a point where we are able to patronize black business. We need a political leadership, particularly through the legislative branch of government, the National Assembly, right, to enact laws that will be very unapologetic, very emphatic in transforming the economy. Because historically, societies are always changed by leadership, by visionaries who are able to influence masses and populations into a particular direction. And where we are unfair in South Africa is that we expect a particular mindset, as you point out, a particular attitude and a particular behavioral pattern on the part of the population, but there is no conducive political, economic, and social framework for that process to be true. We need someone today to say, I will break up monopoly industries, right? I will go to the mining sector, I will go to the construction sector, I will go to manufacturing, and I will bring in 5, 10 more players in each respective industry to ensure that there is greater competition, because when you have greater competition, the prices even go down. And that's why you make things easier.
Protas? Okay. Sure. And then, Protas, your take here. Now, we've talked about him as the technocrat, the fixer, but now the political aspect, the politician here. Do you see him having the support at the branch level? Do you see this happening? Is there great reception?
Well, certainly from the media reports that we hear, and also colleagues countrywide, we hear that he has a very strong support, particularly elsewhere in KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape. There's still a big question mark about Mpumalanga. Certain, and also in his favor, he seems also to be all the presidential candidates seem to be eyeing him as a potential companion.
Protas, talk to us about the relationship, though, between Dr. Mkhize and the President Jacob Zuma, because they were once quite close, and this is something that continues to baffle a lot of people. He was considered the protege, he was also considered somebody that perhaps the president was grooming for this moment. But something went wrong. What was the fallout there, if you perhaps are in the know?
Well, certainly I don't know, but I do concur with you that they were very, very, very close. I don't know about the exile days, but I know for a fact in KwaZulu-Natal, during the times of violence, the two of them were in the forefront to negotiate with the other warring parties. They were really traveling the length and breadth of KwaZulu-Natal, trying to quell out the violence of the 80s to the 90s. And I don't think, personally, between the two of them, there are those serious differences. I think they are still friends, but that does not stop him from running for the presidency. After all, his former friend is now, his term of office is almost up. So I don't think one could just conclude that there's a complete fallout.
No, well, I suppose the saying rings true that there are no permanent friends in politics. Everything else we won't mention. But thank you very much. Now, on to the next one. The ANC is set to reflect on the legacy left by stalwarts like Harry Gwala as it heads to the Watershed National Conference. Now, Nomusa Pungula filed this report for us.
Harry Gwala, the man whose name is on landmarks of many historic sites in KwaZulu-Natal, loved his family, but he had to sacrifice being a father and husband for the liberation struggle.
His wife never enjoyed to being with his husband because while Ubaba was in and out a prison, Ubaba was under arrest, was under house arrest, was all was under all of that. So what Ubaba nje ngasho ukuthi wakusacrifice lokho azange ukuthi kuyena uma eseboshiwe ngo esephumele ngo-72 wazange athi ene ngiyayeka manje lento ngoba umndeni wami suffer. Thina we used to suffer. We suffered a lot while my father was in Robben Island.
Ube a man of honor enomuntu eyindoda enothando. I remember uma wethu washiya very early and washiya sabancane, so umkhulu became everything to us. Isikhathi esincane sisifunde kuyena usifundisile ukuthi nene ukuthi izandla ziyagezana, ukuthi umuntu abe umuntu ngomunye umuntu ngabantu. I remember like kwakuhlezi kugcwele nga-understand ukuthi nalabantu abagcwele la abasekhaya, but wonke umuntu owayebalekile empini laba bekhona babeza bagcwalela ekhaya. So we ended up being si share kokuncane sasinakho because ama-gates ayivulelekile la ekhaya.
During his time in the liberation struggle, Gwala faced torture, incarceration, and many other challenges, but he never turned his back on the movement he dedicated his entire life to.
Clear period yabo obaba Gwala nathi wawazi ukuthi if ungena kulezi zinto it's either uyaboshwa uyejele abanye bebengaze bangavumi kuyejele uba bebeba ama state witnesses abanye bajike babe ama informers yabo abanye bajike babe koma hit squads amabhulu bekhona ama askari so ubuwazi ukuthi 1 uyaboshwa 2 uyafa. Those were the only things.
The political landscape has evolved, but the mark left by leaders like Gwala remain intact. As the ANC heads to the Watershed Conference, it will pause and reflect on the legacy left by Gwala and others.
Why ngisho njalo isikhathi esikhulu ipolitics eningi siyifunde kuyena. Kusukela kuma-50s ngiseyumfana emncane nami saqhubeka ke nawo lawo ma-politics naye baze bayoboshwa ngo-1964 65 kanjalo aqede lapho ayohlala ejele kulokhu kokuqala aphume ejele aqhubeke nomsebenzi siqhubeke futhi nokusebenza nabo size siyoboshwa nabo futhi ngo-75 agwetshwe ulife.
His love for the South African people and the liberation for a black South African led him to the African National Congress and the SACP. 22 years later, he is still loved and dearly missed by his family. Nomusa Pungula for ANN7, KwaSwaimane, KZN.
Certainly a very beautiful package, yet poignant as well. It is a reminder of what many lost and how much they were willing to give up for this very movement. And finally, this week's poll question. Now, the question today is the land expropriation without compensation proposal feasible? Do give us your responses on Twitter. Our handle is @ANN7TV, or visit our website. We'd certainly love to hear from you. And that's where we end today's show. Until next time.